Hey, good evening. Welcome to 2022, guys. What'd you think of the opening credits? I hope you were able to see the opening credits and hear them. I'm just sitting over here, chilling out. Hello. Wow, look at the crowd I have over on YouTube. Hi to my YouTube fans. I was so nervous about the intro coming off. Tell me what you thought. What'd you guys think? That's the new intro. And I want to say it's screwed up because there's no credits on it. Credits are going on that. That needs to be credited because Rich and Jeremy over at Bards of Greyhawk provided that music, and that's from them. So that is one of the cool new things in 2022. So you're going to get that. I'm not completely settled yet on the end splash. A buddy of mine, who's an actual real artist, did the original logo for the Delver's Dungeon, and I want to talk to you about the Delver's Dungeon. In a little bit, but he did a really cool logo that I would by preference like to use, or at least the font or something. I made that in Filmora X, which a supporter of the show, got me a seat in Filmora X. So thank you very much. A very special thank you to the person who did that, and he knows who he is, and he shared that seat with me. So I really appreciate that. But I embraced the suck and decided to say, I'm going to stop pussyfooting about, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to at least try. Thank you, William. Thank you, Vinny. Hello. I'm at least going to try to make to make this work. And I did that in about 15 minutes. That's about 15 minutes worth of work. The hardest part was figuring out how to do the audio fade out at the end, because I knew it wasn't going to be exactly 30 seconds to have the nice pans across the D&D books and so on. I knew it wasn't going to clock in at exactly 30 seconds. It was going to go a little bit over. So I wanted to fade the music out. And Filmora X is a little weird on the music fades, but I got it to work. Goodness, I have a lot of people here. So that's a wonderful thing. Okay, William, we'll see you over on YouTube. Thank you very much. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And I want to talk about YouTube and even Facebook. This is relevant to YouTube and to Facebook. I know that since I started doing things on YouTube, that I've kind of called this unofficially the crazy gibberish, because it's kind of random and wild, and I really like the scene in Futurama when the professor, I almost said Professor Frank, he shows his clone son this universal translator. He goes, "This is my universal translator. Unfortunately, it only translates things into some unknown dead language." And the kid leans in and says, "Hello." And the translator goes, "Bonjour." And the professor shakes his fist at it and goes, "Crazy gibberish." I just always thought that was a funny scene because, it's making fun of the French and the French language. But I can't do anything with it. Like, if I put the Futurama font on merch or something, the crazy gibberish, Fox would, well, I guess Disney at this point would park the Death Star over my house, send Kathleen Kennedy clones in to kick in my front door, and I don't know, just terrible stuff. All the way back in 2001, when I started really getting serious about promoting role-playing games online, particularly Dungeons and Dragons, my website that was loaded on the back of my Roadrunner broadband internet connection, all 10 megabits of it, they gave me a very generous 3 megabytes to have a personal website. But you got to understand, 2000, 2001 is like 6 or 7 years after the creation of the World Wide Web. So I can't hate on them too much, you know? So, and in choosing the Delver's Dungeon, this is a funny story. I set up a separate email because I didn't want emails coming to my regular Roadrunner email account. So I created a Hotmail account. Microsoft Hotmail, not HOTMALE, a Hotmail account. And I tried different variations. I tried Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons, Dragons, Dragons, Dungeon. And I just went through them all. And the one that I finally found that worked was the Delver's Dungeon at hotmail.com. Don't use it. I can no longer access that account. Microsoft is like, well, you've forgotten your password, but we'll just send an email to your working alternate backup email so you can get in. That account too is gone. I'm not going through like 8-step verification to look at emails from 2003. So what I branded myself as on the early modules that you can still find out there on the web and download is the Dungeon Delver. And my website was the Delver's Dungeon. So from 2022 out, I am once again the Dungeon Delver. Now, does this mean that this is going to be exclusively, always, and only ever Dungeons and Dragons content? No, there'll be other games that I talk about. I have boxes of role-playing games. I have shelves of stuff. I'll talk about, I'll come on and talk about movies and TV shows. I'll talk about what you guys want to talk about. On open mic nights, that's you guys. That's you guys asking me questions. That's y'all's input. But that's going forward. The other big thing, other than the unrebranding, debranding, and rebranding, some people asked me about this, and I have started this. You can support me now via Patreon. If you go down into the description of the video, you will see a link to Patreon. And let me see if I can bring this up here. I still have somebody watching over on Facebook, so I don't want to just close that tab. But if you don't see it in the description for whatever reason, or you don't want to avert your eyes, right there. Oh, dang it. Not with a slash. Right there, if you want to support me on Patreon, you can. I currently have 2 tiers. A third one is coming soon for adventures. The $1 tier is a big thank you. The $5 tier, you get access to a twice monthly video that I'll do on various topics, role-playing game related. The $10 tier will be a bi-monthly, that's not twice a month, that's once every 2 months, published adventure written by me. which I may even increase the frequency. I may go to a month on that. So $1, $5, $10, there may be a higher up tier. It depends. I'm going to have to look into it. And I want to take a time. Now I don't have like a scrolling thing to put up the side at the end of the video or towards the end of the video. But I want to thank, I have 2 patrons, 2 people signed up today. So Damien X247, thank you very, very much. And I have received a grant from the James Keck Observatory. So thank you to my first 2 patrons. No, James Keck, I tease him about that all the time. Because it's a famous observatory in Hawaii. It's, at least I think it's in Hawaii. I keep saying it's in Hawaii. I don't know that it's in Hawaii, but I think it's in Hawaii. So James Keck and Damien X247, thank you very much for becoming my first patrons today. I think Damien was chronologically first, like on the day clock, but you guys were both here today. Now, I'm not gonna like promise that I will read off like every name of every sub, or every patron rather. That could potentially get very lengthy. You know, it might be a bit arrogant of me to say, I'll have so many people on Patreon, I won't be able to read off all your names. I mean, I could get like one more ever, you know. Oh, you know, just one for every tier. I still have to pay admission to the observatory. Yes, James, that's right. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on right now. That's the big 2022 announcements. Of course, I'm going to keep bringing you guys modern RPG news, you know, and you can tell like when I come on and my face is already beat red because I'm hacked off at something that Wizards has done. And I saw this, there's a great pop culture news views, rants, reviews channel called Clownfish TV. They were talking about the absolute state of Dungeons and Dragons, but one of the things that they said was it's obvious that Hasbro is making Wizards water it down because they're getting ready to sell Wizards of the Coast off to somebody, and they rattled off a bunch of potential buyers. And one of them, I never thought about this because, you know, they're basically pumping up the D&D property to make it to make it more saleable, and of course making it as bland as possible, pouring as much water in and thinning it out and making it as bland and palatable for Joe Soy Pack. But one of the things that they had that they had mentioned, that they had talked about, was, you know, it could be bought by these people. You know, Microsoft could buy it. These people could buy it. Maybe Tencent. And that was like I was looking at my phone while driving my car, and then I looked up and there was the concrete pillar of the overpass right in front of me, and it just, you know, just hit it, slammed into it, wrapped around it. And I'm going to have a little lowercase p political rant here. Tencent is an arm of the Chinese Communist government. If you're still clinging to current day Dungeons and Dragons by your fingernails, hoping that you can squeeze some good out of it, that it's still fun, there's no indication it will be. I mean, they might not even consider it worth buying. Disney, Disney maybe. If Tencent got their hands on Dungeons and Dragons, even me saying, okay, go legitimately buy your old school PDFs from D&D Classics, or the DMs Guild in their Classic section. And Chris, I don't think they'd sell it either. But anyway, but if it happened and if Tencent bought it, you and I, everyone watching this video, anyone playing Dungeons and Dragons would be morally and ethically obligated to stop buying anything new, no matter what edition, PDF, print on demand, what have you. You cannot support the Chinese government. You can't. Political runoff. That's the end of it. Let's go on. Let's talk about fun stuff, because I did some fun stuff this weekend. Now, I am a ball of nervous energy when it comes to watching my favorite sports team, which happens to be the Alabama Crimson Tide, Roll Tide. I don't think they're going to sell either, Mobius. I don't. But I can't just watch a game. If I'm in my bedroom and the TV's on and there's a college football game on and I'm really invested in it and the Tide are playing, I will clean that room. Saturday afternoons to evenings. It's just like, it's just like, oh my gosh, the bed is made, the laundry's full, blah, 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 blah. Everything that didn't get done during the day is done. Because I'm nervous, and otherwise I'll chew my fingernails or, do this constantly and lose even more of my hair. If it's on out in the den, I'll clean the den and the kitchen, because the kitchen looks straight into the den. All that stuff will get spick and span. No, don't. Just relax for a minute, Katie. This is gaming related. This is tabletop gaming related. Take your hand off the mouse. Take your hand off the mouse. Deep breath. So I streamed the Alabama game. They played Cincinnati for the semifinal. I streamed that game, watched it on my PC. Nervous during the whole thing. What I did was I colored dice. And let me tell you about this. And then I promise, after I talk about the dice, we're going to talk more about OD&D. I promise. OD&D is coming. So, first of all, I don't even have them out. Silly me. Friend of the show and friend of mine in general, Rusty Schaefer, got me just because a lovely gift back during the summer, and I did a whole unboxing of it, a Holmes Dungeons and Dragons set. It didn't come with any dice, but he picked up these. And I got, oh, that camera's not on. He picked up these. This is a dice set. It's just called Dice and Crayons. And it's a set of replica Holmes dice, almost. The D20 is 1 through 20, and it comes with 2 10-siders. 2 different colored 10-siders. Or maybe they're the same and one is 10s. I don't remember. But so he got me this set, and it's awesome. You know what? Here, I'm going to bring the let's see. Bring that up, and you guys can see. Yeah, okay, so it's different colored D10s. Focus. There you go. So it came with that. And so while the football game was on, I took the black crayon and the orange crayon in a couple. I am going to play some OD&D, Chris. I promise. But I colored in the dice. And when I was done, I was so impressed by the quality of the dice. So a number of years ago, I got a set of Game Science Sharp Edge powder blue opaque dice. And I used an actual TSR. I used an actual TSR crayon that came with a set of TSR dice and crayon that I bought from Crazy Igor's. That's how long ago that was. I mean, that baggie with those crappy TSR dice and an unused crayon now, like the baggie's still sealed up. Nowadays, that would cost like $150 or something. I bought it for like 15. But I used that crayon on the new Game Science dice, and it sucked. It was terrible. Now Chris is doing nervous housework. It's coming, Chris. It's coming. Show the front side of the box. Well, it's okay. I'll bring this up while I run my mouth. So that's what it looks like. See, it looks a bit like a Holmes. So it's even called the Holmage set. What is that? Zuccotti. So I took the crayon from this, the black crayon. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The Sharp Edge Game Science dice, when I colored them in with a white crayon, the crayon seemed to crumble out. There were burrs on them because the machine that makes the edges round also polishes the burrs off of dice. And it was... I was convinced that I had gotten dice from the fall off of quality. There have been a few years, and it's been kind of up and down with Game Science dice, where some people are like, oh, these are just like the dice I got in 1978, and they're perfect, and you can cut a man's throat with the point of an 8-sider, and you know, they're amazing and they're fantastic. And then other people are like, these are lumpy, crappy pieces of plastic. I was convinced that I had dice that were the latter, because it seemed like when I would color in the numbers and then wipe over it with a bit of tissue paper, the crayon would just fall out. That the grooves cut for the dice were too shallow. And so I was a little disappointed, and the dice went in a dice bag, and I just forgot about them. Game was still on. I was done with the dice, and I said, you know what? I'm going to grab all the dice I have that you can color in and just go to town with these two crayons. I have plenty of the black crayon left, and the orange crayon is barely touched. And the first ones that I decided to try, I said, look, I haven't used these on the tabletop because the numbers are unreadable. I'm just going to take a little bamboo skewer. I use them in hobbies for all sorts of things. Clean the number grooves out and try the black crayon. They came out beautifully. It was never the dice, it was the crayon. So let me show you these, how good. And the black on blue is so nice and high contrast. Let's go back, and hopefully this will pop into view and you guys can see just how nice that looks. I just went nuts with scrubbing the numbers into the dice. And they have a similar color scheme to classic D&D dice, which I also colored on. Link to the small OD&D set. If I can find it. If I can find it, Vinny. So here's the Sixers. But yeah, I mean, I wish I had before. I wish I'd shown you these guys before. Like, look at this D10. That looks like it came from a factory like that. Look how nice that is. Come on, focus. Now, some of them were a little wonky still. These weren't perfect. There's a couple of... Here, let me move out of the way. Thank you, Dungeon Minister. There are some of these dice that look like they're that look like, if you look at them through a magnifying glass, you can see fingerprints on them, like in the plastic. Like somebody picked them up while they were still cooling. And so, yeah, but I was at least able to get good numbers on them, and I'll be using those now. And I redid my TSR dice of old, and they look fantastic. Let me see if I can find that link real quick, for you guys, for that dice set, if you want. It was a gift. I don't know how much it costs, but I have been told that it is kind of expensive, but the six sides will take out an eye. The D4 goes right through the foot. The D20 is classified as an illegal munition. You cannot fire this out of a gun per the Geneva Convention. WDSJ says, I just got 2 sets of Holmes replica dice from Threshold Dice Works. Oh, that's cool. I will... Oh, you know what? I also have Holmes Dice-wise. I got a set from GaryCon. I signed up for to run 5 games at GaryCon back in 2020. Or was it 2021? I forget. But anyway, they sent me a massive swag bag, which I've talked about on the show before. And it came with a set of replica Holmes dice, but they're rounded edged. Let's see. Oh, wow. So this is, this was a limited set. I didn't know that. I did not know that, but here I will link it. And you guys, if you want to rush in and buy them out, if they have any left. Now, I still have 2 actual real Holmes dice. I have a green 8-sider and the yellow D4. Those, I tried to recolor those in. Those are inked by machine, even though they're sharp edge. I dropped the D20, I dropped the D4 and nearly stepped on it. My foot came down. It was far enough to the left of my arch that it only just brushed the top of my arch, the point of the dice. So, yeah, I was really happy to recover my Holmes, or my Game Science dice, and we'll be using those. And I redid, like I said, the basic D&D set that I bought with the crappy crayon that nearly made me give up hope in my Game Science dice. So, just clean those and redid them. Enough talk about dice and the channel. Let's get back to original D&D. Let me see here. Can I show you guys? Nope. Sorry. Let me try this. There we go. So I'm going to shrink me down, and we're going to continue looking on. Now, if you guys remember, when you need to explain caltrops to the players, you show them the D4. Nice. So if you guys remember last time, hello, John David. Good to see you. Ba-ding. If you guys remember, last time we had made Xylarthen the Second. And let me just do, yes. Xylarthen the Second is an original D&D character. He is Strength 12, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 9, Dexterity 10, Constitution 13, Charisma 11, which means he can have up to 4 hirelings with no loyalty adjustment. Someone is pinging me on Facebook. And we spent all of the money. Thank you, William Smith, for the links. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Zylarthan has Strength 12, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 9, Dexterity 10, 13 Constitution, 11 Charisma, 4 hirelings, which he cannot currently afford. He is a fighting man, which means he is afforded 1+1 hit dice. That is to say, we rolled a d6, we rolled his hit points, we rolled 3, and we get to add 1 + 1. Now, this is the point where I would be telling you, in true old school fashion, we would be using chainmail for Zylarthan's first combat test. Folks, the day will come one day when I will do a Let's Play of chainmail in a fantasy D&D vein. That's not now. It's been a long time since I tinkered with chainmail, and with the limited amount of time that I had this weekend, learning chainmail by myself was not gonna happen. It is wonky and strange. Misty Leonidas, it's that famous that famous Spartan stripper. But anyway, so the chainmail rules are a little tough to get one's head around. Fortunately, we have in the AD&D PDF, of course, we have the easier to understand alternate combat rules, and we can use these strange dice that we bought at the hobby shop where we normally get our model rockets and our RC airplane parts and our model train setups and our Avalon Hill games had these strange dice that look like little gemstones. So we're going to use those to play D&D. And there goes my light, Q Baker Street. But we kind of started poking around the OD&D rules a little bit. Now, Zylarthan is not a magic user. He doesn't have the patience to learn all that magic nonsense. So the spell descriptions are largely superfluous to us. Now, what Zylarthan does have is a dagger, a sword, a bow, 20 arrows, plate mail, helm, shield, 6 torches, 2 flasks of oil, 50 feet of rope, a 10-foot pole, and a leather backpack. All of that equipment means that his base movement is 60 feet a turn. That's not every 10 minutes. That is every time he gets to move. Time being slightly different. So we can skip what the clerics can do and what the magic users can do. We can just get right into the meat of things. Oh, there's the Amazon. That'll get me shut down on YouTube. So yeah, by the time we get to Men in Magic, we see that it is just simply magic. So let's go over. We've opened our box set. We're looking through our box set. Let's look at the next volume. Monsters and Treasures. That sounds interesting. Which, by the way, these what is the word I'm looking for? Alliterative names. Dungeons and Dragons, Men in Magic. Men in Magic, well, Monsters and Treasures isn't alliterative. Those are alternate names for the game. Imagine a universe where Monsters and Treasures 5th edition by Wizards of the Coast causes so much controversy, and advanced Monsters and Treasures players like me just can't stand it. How does he store the 10-foot pole? Well, with one hand, he's carrying, his sword. And with his other hand, he's carrying a shield. With his other hand, he's carrying the torch. And with his other hand, he's carrying the 10-foot pole. Simple? It's collapsed. There you go. So here we go. Let's dive in and look a bit at monsters before we get back over to Men in Magic and actually start adventuring a little bit. Oh, Dungeon Minister. So the monsters you know and love are all essentially here. This is basically the monster manual and the portion of the Dungeon Master's Guide that covers treasures and magic items. So we have, now this is in no order whatsoever. I don't know if Gary intended to put this in alphabetical order. Maybe he put a note to the editors, hey, put this in alphabetical order. It's just there. I mean, there's kind of order to it. Goblins, kobolds, orcs, hobgoblins and gnolls, ogres, trolls, and giants. They're all humanoid creatures. And then we have undead creatures, skeletons, ghouls, wights, wraiths, mummies, specters, vampires. And then, interestingly, we have a group of things that can turn you to stone. Cockatrice, basilisk, medusae, gorgons. And finally, we have, but next, we have reptilian threats. We have manticoras, hydras, chimeras, wyverns, dragons, and gargoyles, I guess you could bunch in there. And then just kind of hanging out, we've got lycanthropes and purple worms. And then we get into more fantastical sylvan threats, or beings, I should say. Minotaurs, centaurs, unicorns, nixies, pixies, dryads, gnomes, which are not playable yet, by the way. Dwarves, elves, treants, pegasi, hippogriffs. Then we get into a couple of hippogriffs would fall, and pegasi would fall into the flying type. So we have pegasi, hippogriffs, rocks, griffins, invisible stalkers, which are not given a number appearing. And then we have kind of a trio of summoned beings, elementals, jinn, efreet, ochre jelly. Now we get into oozes and scummy stuff. Ochre jelly, black pudding, green slime, gray ooze, yellow mold, pink hearts, blue diamonds. And then just kind of normal things light and medium and heavy and draft horses, mules, insects or animals, small, insects or animals, large. So there is kind of a logic to the grouping, but there's nothing really, I mean, beyond that, it's not, you know. Good call, Matt Evans. Gnomes are totally playable in OD&D. I'm just saying that we're not given any guidance beyond, yeah, players can if they want. Move this over here so I can see all y'all's comments. I don't want to miss nothing. I don't think there's hardly anyone over on Facebook, but if you're there on Facebook or you join us on Facebook, greetings. And I don't want to miss anything. Let's see. But getting back to it. And you can see in the column, we have armor class, move in inches, hit dice, percent in layer. Now that was the form, that was the occurrence of a rather funny typo, because the print OD&D set for many, many years had a typo, percentage liar. The A and the I were flipped. Obviously it was a typo. Dave Hargrave, creator of the Arduing Grimoire, which built on OD&D in increasingly less sane and stranger ways, copied that. Only he explained that clearly what Gary meant was the odds that the monster would not be telling the truth if you asked it. Vinny says, I love the earlier art of TSR. Keenan Powell. Yes, Keenan Powell, one of the... Greg Bell. A buddy of mine who is frequently on the show, of course, Tracy Lesh. The dearly departed David C. Sutherland. But anyway, percentage in liar, amount, type or amount of treasure. Now, treasure types in OD&D, we're going to zip all down, so prepare for warp speed. There are some footnotes. Referees option, increase or decrease amount according to party concern, used primarily only for out-of-door encounters. So that's a good footnote. You're not going to bump into 400 orcs randomly wandering the halls of your dungeon. Unless your dungeon is based on, say, Moria. So that's generally only outside. Number after slash is flying speed. Creature may charge, also and get bonus to normal move. And see separate paragraphs regarding each monster for various possibilities. So... And remember something. All things you encounter in a dungeon in D&D, and this has been true, I don't know if it's true now, but the term monster just meant thing that you encountered. But let us continue on while we have time. It's getting late in the evening. We want to see if Zylarthan will survive his first combat. There's some of that artwork, some of that classic OD&D art. Bandits. There are several categories of men. And I'm not going to go through all these guys. But, there's bandits, berserkers, brigands, same as bandits, except +1 morale and chaos alignment. Dervishes, fanatic religious nomads who fight as berserkers, never checking morale, otherwise as nomads, except they will always be led by an 8th to 10th level cleric and are lawful in alignment. Well, that's good to know. Oh, we never picked Zylarthan's alignment. Let's just say Zylarthan is neutral. His intelligence of 8 means he can speak common and his alignment tongue. So I'll make a note here. I'm sure Watsy is, Awig says, I'm sure Watsy is working on how to rename monster as you speak. Yeah, no doubt. Interestingly, mermen are listed under men. Mermen are similar to berserkers, but they fight at -1 on land. They are armed with tridents and darts. Armor class is equal to leather armor. So don't think just because you're out of the water that you're safe from a pissed off merman or mermaid. And then we have all the standards. Thin and rubbery, loathsome trolls are able to regenerate so that beginning the third melee round after one is hit, it will begin to repair itself. Regeneration is at the rate of 3 hit points per turn. Even totally sundered trolls will regenerate eventually, so that unless they are burned or immersed in acid, they will resume combat when they have regenerated to 6 or more hit points. In strength, they are about equal to an ogre, but as they use only their talons and fangs for weapons, only 1 die of damage is scored when they hit an opponent. Well, that's good. Damien says, changing berserkers to barbarians was a mistake. Not all primitive folks in the tribe are going to be able to go berserk. Fair enough. I'm not going to touch that one, Chris, except to say I agree with you. And there's our bevy of undead. Wyverns, dragons, etc., etc. But let's scroll down and we'll look at treasure types. Then we're going to get into Zylarthan's actual first combat because it's getting late and it's getting on. I actually have an AD&D game to run tonight, so we're gonna zip on down here and look at the treasure types. There's a Pegasus from Keenan Powell. A werewolf. Don't know who did that one. Here's our treasure types. Now note there are breakouts for land, desert, or water under treasure type A. There's treasure type B. And note the narrow range of coins. Copper, silver, gold. No platinum, no electrum. Gems and jewelry. Gems are not broken out into their own. Maps or magic. No separate column for potions. No separate columns for anything else. 5 columns. And treasure types only go up to letter I. We don't get into individual like coins in pockets until AD&D. And then here's our odds and ends. If you've played basic Dungeons and Dragons, you might be going, this looks really familiar. And that's why. In the basic D&D fork of Dungeons and Dragons carries forward a lot of original D&D with it. So if you're like, man, I never got an original D&D set. Well, first of all, before WotC hurts us anymore, avail yourself and go get a copy. PDF, get it print on demand, whatever. And second of all, if you have basic, you've largely seen OD&D. The language is cleaned up and clarified, but treasure-wise, game mechanics, it's very similar to OD&D. But you see, our weapons and our magic items are fairly limited, as it were. Potions are about the same as they are in AD&D. And we have scrolls, rings, wands, staves, miscellaneous magic items, treasure maps, magic items. Maps to treasure, maps to magic. And then swords. Right off the bat, you could wind up with an intelligent sword. I love this Keenan Powell Medusa. She looks like she has absolutely no time for your shit. You know, you're going on about like how popular your posts on Reddit are and how you're totally going to buy a Tesla next year when you pick up that next shift at the call center, and she just extraordinary abilities for swords. We continue onward. And yet they took so much out of it, Matt. No demons, no devils, you know, no beholders. They took too much out of it. That's not saying that I like Holmes Basic or Moldvay Basic and Expert are great. I think like they just cooked it way too long after that. Lord Corion's get it. Hey baby, Medusa. At level 1, your sword could be smarter than you. I mean, don't misunderstand me. I like basic and expert D&D. They're just not my go-to. Intelligence sword, but it's intelligent. Yeah, its intelligence is all arts and crafts. So yeah, you're kind of I bet you're getting it. I mean, so many odds and sods. All right. This head of a dragon turtle looks so much better. The drawing in the book, like their scan just looks abysmal. But the drawing in the book is beautiful. It is hands down one of the most gorgeous illustrations in original D&D. Katie for the win. She looks like the adventure. Hey, come on, you're pretty. Give us a smile. Now, this illustration right here, this is going to be the last thing I touch on, and then we come to the combat. We come to what you guys have been champing at the bit for almost an hour. Because again, I got an AD&D game starting in a half an hour. So, this illustration here, this is, I think this is Greg Bell also. That is an homage to a then current issue of the Doctor Strange comic. That's actually not a bad homage, actually, if you look at it. I mean, you know, he's working from a 1970s era Marvel comic to kind of mimic some of those drawings, but yeah. And once again, the scan, if you look over here, that's screwed up. There's some marks there that don't appear in the original. Let's get to it. Xylarthen the Second has hired on contingency a guide to take him from the city of Greyhawk safely to the Last Chance Inn, and there goes my other light, to the Last Chance Inn, which is a day's march through the swamps near Castle Greyhawk to the castle itself. And for the sake of expediency, we will say that Zylarthan is unmolested and manages to make it to the castle, finds the mighty cistern in the middle of the castle courtyard, creeps across a log that's fallen over the moat, lights a torch, and climbs down. He's now in a room perhaps 50 feet in diameter. Doorways to the north, the south, the east, and the west. The passages north and south and east all look very heavily trafficked. Mark says, "Don't go there. Nothing good there." The Last Chance Inn is in my campaign. I wanted to put it in a couple of days, or a day rather, away from Castle Greyhawk, close enough to the ruins of Castle Greyhawk that lower level adventurers could potentially hole up there and so on and etc., but far enough away that it makes sense for it to be far away. But Zylarthan has descended into the cistern, which opens into a large chamber, exits at the cardinal directions. The ones north, south, and east all look fairly heavily trafficked to his eyes. The light shining down in a shaft upon Zylarthan there gives him enough room to strike and alight a torch. Does a wandering monster come passing by? It does not. Zylarthan strikes out and heads to the west. He puts his shoulder to the partially open door. Wet sand is packed up around under the bottom. Is he going to catch the jeweled man? I don't know. With a heave and a hoe, after battering it with his shoulder a couple of times, Zylarthan forces the door. The room beyond is about 30 by 30, but the back wall is collapsed. And in the darkness, stretching away, appears to be a natural cavern. There's a large puddle of water on the floor here. To the right, on the north, there's a closed door that seems swollen with damp. Zylarthan creeps forward in the darkness, avoiding the scummy-looking pool. It looks unwholesome. As he approaches the back, some 20 feet away, he hears a clatter. Hoving into view, 3 skeletons. Rusted, niter-encrusted weapons with the verdigris clutched in their bony hands. They advance. Let's roll initiative. Let's get back over to Men in Magic first. Prepare for scoliosis. Morale scores. Not quite there yet. Combat. Where are combat tables? So Zylarthan is getting ready to throw down. There we go. The alternate combat system. Sorry for all the scrolling. Zylarthan's getting ready to throw down here against some skeletons. I'm going to zip up here and we're going to see what armor class they have. They are armor class 7. They are far enough away that Zylarthan elects to fire his bow. The skeletons, powered by the evil magics of this place, elect to stagger forward. I'm just making it up, John. Just making up shit as I go. Zylarthan rolls a 3 for his initiative. The skeletons roll a 2. Zylarthan will split move and fire. He will fire his bow once and back up 10 feet to the door. Ha-ha! A 20. I should roll quickly to see how many hit points each of the skeletons have. Huh, 1, 2, and 3 hit points, respectively. So, Zylarthan fires his bow into the crowd. Strikes one of the skeletons and does 2 points of damage, knocking away part of its shoulder. Its already rickety lower jaw falls away, and it continues to stagger forward. The skeletons advance. Zylarthan moves back and draws his sword. Now, interestingly, in original Dungeons & Dragons, initiative is rolled but once. Zylarthan still has the upper hand as the skeletons move in. Dropping his bow and drawing his longsword, he swings. A 3 is a miss. Contrawise, the skeletons, they are striking at armor class 5. Zylarthan's shield is on his back as he's holding a torch in one hand. The first skeleton misses. The second skeleton misses. The third skeleton connects. Slashes forward with its rusty blade and draws a bloody line across Zylarthan's chest. He cries out in pain. Zylarthan strikes back. He misses. The first skeleton strikes out. The second skeleton strikes out. The third skeleton lashes. All 3 missing. Zylarthan returns the favor in the next round. Ha! He strikes one. One of the undead automatons smashes the one in the center. It collapses in a heap of bones. But the other 2 have to attack. The first misses. The second misses. Yes, you roll initiative each round, John David. In chainmail, it's 1 time. Zylarthan, in the next round, strikes again. And destroys a second. Only 1 remains. Its rusting iron sword shard clatters off of Zylarthan's mail. Zylarthan steels himself. If he can destroy this last one, perhaps he can discover some modicum of treasure that they guarded. A 14, a hit. A hit. Zylarthan's sword crushes through the bones of the remaining skeleton, and its dusty fragments clatter to the floor. I will be streaming tonight's AD&D game. I will not be streaming, but Tuesday night's AD&D game is streamed. And this is original D&D, Katie. So the skeletons lie in flinders. Painfully, agonizingly, Zylarthan explores forward in the cave. Do the skeletons guard some small amount of treasure? Alas, no. Only potsherds and the broken ribs of barrels lie scattered in the collapsed wall beyond. But the yawning tunnels stretch before him. This is no mere collapsed wall. The fallen wall of the room stretch further into the darkness, exposing an entire twisting labyrinth of caves. Gingerly, Zylarthan moves backwards away from the cave. He's already taken a blow. He knows better than to try and test his luck against some of the more twisting and labyrinthine corridors of Castle Greyhawk, especially by himself. He turns and examines the door to the north, throwing his shoulder against it. It refuses to budge. He tries again. He's putting up a furious racket now, tugging and yanking, but it won't give way. He returns to the circular cistern chamber to begin his ascent. When what does he see? But 3 orcs, crude scimitars in hand, their eyes unaffected by the darkness of this place. One laughs and points and says, "You! What you do here?" Unfortunately, Zylarthan does not speak Orcish. He brandishes his sword and looks upward at the ceiling and at the rope he climbed down. The orcs in their own guttural tongue discuss this amongst themselves, but seem generally disposed not to attack at the moment. Oh yes, OD&D can be played to a very high level. Zylarthan edges towards the rope. However, the orcs, seeing that there might be easy pickings in a lone adventurer wearing bright mail and carrying a new sword and a pack full of all sorts of goodies, draw their weapons and begin to move in. This could be the end for Xylarthen the Second. Seeing their sudden but inevitable treachery, and still having a sword in hand, Zylarthan lunges forward to strike first. He chops at one of the orcs. And by the way, this is all the dice telling the tale. Cocked. He hews one down. The other 2 are enraged. The first trips over his fallen friend and misses completely. The second swings. Zylarthan falls back. In the light of the chamber, Zylarthan is able to drop his torch, which does not go out, and unslings his shield. Xylarthan's armor class now becomes chainmail and shield armor class 5, whereas it was 6 before. Feeling anger surge up, Zylarthan hacks at the orcs again and strikes again with a 16. Zylarthan is on fire. Alas, he only manages to slightly injure the orc. They counterattack. Oof. One of them lands a telling blow. Xylarthan has but 3 hit points. This could be the end for Xylarthen the Second. No! Xylarthan only takes a hit point of damage. He's still with us. Now he's mad. And with a 15, he strikes the orc. Oh, I've said that now. Let me see. Yes, that will hit the orc. And which one is it? Thank you, John David. He hews down another orc. Oh, yes. More levels of Patreon are coming, guys. There will be a 3rd level. There will be, at the very least, a 3rd level. Maybe even a 4th. But now only 1 orc remains between Zylarthan and escape. It swings. It misses. Zylarthan retaliates. And misses. The orc swings. Uh-oh. The orc just misses. Or does it? Yes, it just misses. Orcs are not 1+1. They are 1-hit dice. Hey, no pressure on anybody as far as Patreon goes, guys, okay? No pressure on anybody. Zylarthan. A 19. He slashes the orc from shoulder to hip. Does the orc flee? No, the orc sees that Zylarthan is just as wounded, and this means more for him now that his fellows are dead. He stays in the fight. The orc counterattacks and misses. Xylarthen the Second is bound to not be Zylarthan the Last. The orc dances away from his sword blow. And lunges forward. But it's a good thing that Zylarthan the Second chose to use his shield, even in this dim light. Because were he only equipped with chainmail, that blow would have landed, and Zylarthan only has 2 hit points left. But it slams off of Zylarthan's shield. Zylarthan retaliates. A 17. I dropped a dark blue die on a dark carpet. Fortunately, I have plenty of D6s. And knocks the orc dead with a sword blow. Surely by now, Zylarthan must know that the orcs will be upon him soon. What treasure might they have had? Well, according to this, treasure type D for orcs. He quickly rummages through their purses and belt pouches. They are 1-minute rounds, Chris. They are 1-minute rounds. Or turns. They refer to it as a turn. So let's see. Now he's not going to get all of this. The orcs were not carrying the weight of their tribe's treasure with them. I will adjust this accordingly because I'm the dungeon master as well as the player. So, some percentile dice must be rolled. He comes up with 12 copper pieces. No silver pieces. No gold pieces. Just missed out on a chance for any gems or jewelry. And were they carrying any maps or potions? They were not. So he will take his 12 copper pieces, shimmy up the rope, feeling every agonizing pull as he drags himself up the rope. He will take his 12 copper pieces and make his way back towards the last chance inn, where hopefully he can get a bowl of lukewarm soup and a clean bandage or two for his injuries. So if you guys would like to see more adventures of Zylarthan, we can do that on the next episode. Or, well, in addition to talking about, let's see. There we go. In addition to talking about the underworld and wilderness adventures in OD&D, because it is fascinating, the underworld and wilderness adventures part of original D&D. So you guys can, we can do both the next session. Now, tomorrow night, Kyle Schuant will be on co-hosting, and we can look at more of this. We might even talk Kyle into playing Xylarthen. And later tomorrow night, after the live stream, we will be live streaming an AD&D game. This has been going on since, I guess, October-ish, maybe November. But yeah, tomorrow night we will be live streaming the Delver's Dungeon live AD&D game. Depending on what the adventurers do, we may have some Dwarven Forge and miniatures and terrain. I thought about doing that for Xylarthen the Second tonight, but I had so much to talk about. I just wanted to, I just kind of wanted to roll with it a little bit. John David says, we should all roll for a character and just let Bill roll for us. Oh my gosh, 17 of you guys. I could potentially do it. I've DM'd 20 people before, 20, 23 people, 24 or something like that. Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future of D&D. Service guarantees fun. I love that. I'm going to steal that. I love it. I want to take a minute here. I've got, oh my God, my first edition game starts in like 10 minutes. I'm going to get up and run across a room with my boom mic and set it up to play for the Monday night game. But I want to, let me see. Dang it. Okay. All right. Patrons, tomorrow, I promise, cross my heart, I will have a full credits for patrons who support the channel on Patreon, I will have that up going at the end of the sesh. At the end of the stream, I will show that. I promise I'm not ignoring you guys. Let me just, there we go. I'm not ignoring you guys. It will be on screen, scrolling up to the left or the right or across, probably across the bottom, because tomorrow night I will only be streaming on YouTube. Kyle using StreamYard is a lot easier for him than Discord or anything else. So yeah, tomorrow night, we'll do that thing. And I will give proper thanks to everyone. Thank you for signing up on Patreon. More Patreon levels are coming. If you're holding out for like, well, I want to give them money, but I want more for it, there's stuff coming. And I love each and every one of you guys, regardless of whether or not you sign up for Patreon or you don't sign up for Patreon. Since Andromeda Strain took its insane grip on our country and people lost their damn minds, I've been doing this for you guys, okay? And it's not going to change. Regardless if one person or no people are on Patreon, it's not going to change. You guys are never going to be like, y'all didn't pay me, y'all don't get shit. That's not how I do this. I don't have DLC, Delver's laudable charges. So with that, I'm going to go. Thank you all for being here. I have never had 20 people watching my live stream before. Please, 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 if you came by, please subscribe to the channel, because when this channel hits 1,000 subs, that little thing I just did there, the thing I do on Tuesday nights when I play D&D, we're going to have a whole virtual convention, the Great Underground Virtual Gaming Con. When I hit 1,000 subs, that's how we're going to celebrate that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all being here tonight. Mwah. I love you all, guys. Peace. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. Just and keep being awesome. Okay? Keep being awesome. And I will see you all tomorrow. I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.